All right. I will first start with a short introduction about myself. So my name is Larissa van der Wal. I have a background in biomedical sciences and science communication, and I currently work as a content specialist research at the University Medical Center in Groningen. That means that I create content for websites and other social media channels. I also sometimes make a podcast, make some videos, and do lots of things actually. Part of my job is also to help research to become more skilled in communicating their research. And the social media workshop that I give with my colleagues is part of that. We give the workshop now for almost 2 years. I think we give them not super often, I think like 4 times a year, something like that. But we see that there's a growing interest. We share news about our research on different channels. We have a research website, we have a LinkedIn channel that we often use, and we have an Instagram account. We also have an account on X, but we don't use that often anymore. I will come to that. First of all, why should researchers use social media? Why should we use social media for research? Well, first of all, it's interesting to use social media to increase your visibility as a researcher. You can also use it for networking. You can share your research with maybe a different audience than that you already know. You can use it for engagement with your audience. It may lead to new collaborations. It's also a bit of personal branding for you as an expert or employer branding for your institute. And what we also see is that science communication and being visible and speak about your research is more and more important in grant proposals. And we also see that researchers have more and more questions about that, how they can be visible or how they can share their research outside the already known channels. So that's why we set up a workshop. In our workshop, it's really about creating a social media strategy. So when you leave the workshop, you go home with like a tailor-made social media strategy for your own channels. And we have some handouts. I will show them in a bit on the screen. And we have handouts about channels that we hand out, so people have some information about that. And we also have a form that people can fill in, and they can take that with them after the workshop. The workshop is always a physical meeting. It's in small groups with a maximum of 20 people. That's really nice because then it's really interactive, and me and my colleague also walk around to answer questions. And we also see that there's a lot of interaction, not only between us, but also between the participants, and sometimes they can help each other, which is really nice. The duration of the workshop is 90 minutes. What I see that it's quite long, but we have assignments in between which break the presentation a little bit. So that's nice. That helps. And the goal of the workshop is actually to make participants feel comfortable to start with social media, and also that they can walk away with a strategy that they can use immediately. I will now go to, I will share my screen with to the handouts. Let's see if it works like this. Do you still see my screen, or do you still see the presentation?
We see your face now.
Sorry, what was that?
We see your face now.
Oh,
the camera.
That's not good. Wait. Then I'll go here. Here. Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is one of the handouts that we hand out to the people. It's our main channels, and for the main channels, we wrote down the goals that you can have on these channels. or which these channels can contribute to. We filled in when to publish. Of course, these are general recommendations, so it can change a little bit depending on your public when it's active, but it might help researchers if they want to start with social media. We defined the target audience on the different channels. And there's also a bit of advice at the bottom to how to make good content on those channels. So this is something that we give to researchers so they can take that with them and also use that during the workshop. And another thing that I wanted to show you is the strategy. Do you see that now?
Yes, we see everything that you see on your screen.
Okay, perfect. So this is the strategy that we hand out, and these are also the assignments that we do during the workshop. So we give a bit of an introduction, we tell a little bit about what different channels that we have and which goals you can have, and a bit about target audience, and then we ask the people to fill in the first 2 questions so they can think about what do I want to achieve with social media, who is the audience that I want to reach there. We say choose a maximum of 2 target groups because otherwise it might be a bit too big. And when it's for everyone, we always say it's for no one. It's good to really specify your audience a little bit. We also ask them to define the channels they want to be on, to write their core message, to see what kind of content they want to post, how often, and how they want to measure their results. So how they want to check their statistics, because that's also important if you want to grow. And I will tell you a bit more on that now, but I thought it was nice to show you this. So now I'll come back to my other screen. All right. So in the workshop, we tell different things about social media. It's really a workshop about the basics. So we first start with information on the different channels, and we chose to highlight LinkedIn, Instagram, and X because those are the channels that we see are used most often for research. But there are also other channels, of course, like Facebook or other channels, but we don't really go into that in this workshop because researchers don't really use that much in the Netherlands. And we also go in on the target audience. We really tell researchers to think about what is the audience you want to reach with your channel. What do you know about them? What are they interested in? To really think about that so they can make content that they are interested in. We also explain a bit about different content forms so that you can write posts, but you can also share a video or an infographic or even a podcast. Another thing that we talk about is the core message. And this is actually a bit more the identity of your channel. So what can people expect if they go to your channel? For example, do you want to share information for patients? Do you want to share about your research field? Do you want to share also updates about your life in the lab, for example? It's good to think about that so that you really have a focus. And we also explain a little bit about frequency and measuring impact. Because if you start with social media, it's also important to not only post once and then never post again, because then your social media channels can't really grow. It's important to stay consistent and have a bit of a plan of what you want to share and want to post and how often. And for these, to keep up frequency, we also tell a bit about which planning tools you can use, because we see that time is often a big thing that researchers say that they don't have, and also they want to be active on social media, but they don't have time. And we also explain to them, of course, you don't have that much time, but if you want to be on social media, you should invest a little bit. But what can help are those planning tools. We also tell a little bit about algorithms, and this is a very highly liked part about the workshop. Researchers are really interested in how to write a good quality post and how can I make sure that my post is seen in the algorithm and is pushed a bit further into the channel. And especially, they are especially interested in LinkedIn. And for example, LinkedIn has 4 phases how they rate your content. It starts with the content creation, and then LinkedIn is scoring your content based on a couple of things. For example, your content can be labeled as spam if it's poor grammar and spelling mistakes, or if you use multiple links in one post, or if you tag more than 5 people in one post, or if you post too often, more than one post every 3 hours, or if you use certain hashtags. And this is good to highlight, because we see often that researchers really want to tag a lot of people in their post, they as much as possible sometimes, and that just doesn't really work for LinkedIn. So this is a part that the researchers are quite interested in. And we also tell a bit more about the algorithms for the other channels, so for X and for Instagram. We also talk about the basics. So complete your profile, fill in your bio if you use Instagram, fill in your summary if you use LinkedIn. The basic rules of getting started with social media. Another thing that we talk about is how you can really grow, and that is actually to be social on social media. It's called social media for a reason. So if you really want to grow and get a bigger channel and get a following, you should also be active on there. And it doesn't mean that you need to post every day or even every week, but it does mean that you have to invite people, that you have to like content of other people, that you have to follow people so they can also see you. And it also works for the algorithm. Think about a professional profile picture. We often see that people sometimes still have holiday pics on there. If you want to use LinkedIn or other social media for your professional career, it's also smart to think about a good profile picture. And we also explain a little bit about privacy and copyright, that you cannot just use pictures and content of other people, and also that you really have to be careful with privacy, especially for patients. That's a thing that's relevant here because some researchers here work with patients. A thing that researchers are also curious about is what can I share on social media? We see that they often mostly think about sharing their results, so sharing their content when they have a publication, for example. And that doesn't happen every week, of course. And then we tell them you can also share different parts of your research. You can share about the start, you can share about the progress. You can also share content about behind the scenes information or just interesting facts in your research area. You can share if you received a grant, you can share if you got a prize, but also useful information for patients, or you can also respond to actualities in the news with your expert opinion, or you can respond to your peers or share content of your peers. That also works. Most of the people that follow a workshop also don't want to start with social media, especially for themselves, but really more for their research group or for their department. And then it also helps if you just share content of your department and work on that content together. We also include a little bit on writing a post in the workshop, because we just want to help them with filtering the most newsworthy information of their publication, for example, and therefore we use a theory that comes from science communication or journalism, like how can you get the most newsworthy information, and how can I share that on social media? We tell them it's important to give the most newsworthy information first, because also on social media, the first 2 lines and a picture are the things that you see first. So if you want to engage with people, it's important that you really think about that. And we give the example of this publication, how you can filter the most newsworthy information, and that's by asking these questions. And in this post, you can see, well, what's happening in the publication, what's the main news. That's that 1 in 8 Dutch people have persistent symptoms after COVID. Who are the main characters? That's the team of researchers led by Judith Rosmalen. Well, why is it important that this news is now here? That's because the knowledge gained is being converted into care pathways. Well, when did it happen? This is about the publication, so it was published today in The Lancet. And how did it happen? How was the research performed? Is described in this text. And here you can see that in quite a short post, you can already summarize the core of your publication. So we give this as an example to researchers, and we also tell them, of course, research is not, or social media is not only about sharing your publication, and also not only posts like this, but this might help to filter the most important information about your publication if you want to share that on social media. We also include a part about negativity, because that's also a thing that researchers sometimes are worried about. If they share about their research, that they get a lot of hate or negativity online. And we have here under the communication department, we always they can always contact us if they need advice, and we also monitor our own social media quite well. So if we see that if there's a researcher that gets hate or is negative in the news, or has negativity online, we also contact them and we help them with it. But we also say that they can limit their reactions and that they can report if they really need help. But this is also a thing that I think is good to include in your workshop, because this might be something that researchers are worried about. And it's also different per channel how much negativity is out there and how you can deal with it. These are questions that we most often get from researchers. So they really want to know, how can I grow my social media account? And now with the current developments on X, do I still go on there? What is your advice? Can I use TikTok, for example? Which hashtags do I use? Does Almetrics also include my presence on social media? And how do I write a good quality post? These are questions that often come back. And of course, we tell them, if you want to grow your social media account, you have to be active on there. You have to make a bit of a plan. And that's also why we offer the strategy in the workshop, because if you only have your first post and don't continue after, then it doesn't really work. And we are also here in the communication department discussing on the policy with these channels, because we don't advise people to use TikTok, for example, because we don't think that's a platform that you as a researcher should be on in a professional way. But we don't really have policy on that. So that's something that we are now developing within our communication department. And also the same thing now with the current development with X. It's completely normal that people ask questions about that, because there's a lot going on. And I think it's important that that the communication department of your institute has a sort of policy on that, because that's something that we encountered now during this workshop. Also, people are also interested in which hashtags to use if they want to be relevant. Well, here at the department, we have an online marketeer who can do an hashtag research, who does that for our corporate channels, but doesn't do that for separate researchers, of course, but we can advise them to which tools to use or how they can set that up if they really want to. And also an interesting thing that came up about Almetrics, that's a tool that measures your your presence in how much you are cited and stuff, but also it also measures your presence on X. And I saw that researchers are also interested in that. And now we are speaking with the library that measures a lot of data from our researchers and our research for us. We are now speaking with them if we can maybe set up a combined workshop, how people can use social media to also increase their presence and increase their Almetrics statistics. And how do I write a good quality post? Well, in the workshop, we just go into writing a post a little bit because it's already quite long, but we see that a lot of people really also want to do that. So we are now also thinking about maybe to start a different workshop on how to write for social media. But that's still we're still a bit debating on how to do that because it's very different per channel, and also it's different what goal you want to reach and also who you are as a person, because it's also quite personal how you use social media. But we're also thinking about that. My experience overall with this workshop is that the feedback is quite positive. There's a growing interest in social media also for researchers, and we are quite often asked to give us the workshop on, for example, institute days or for research groups. Mostly younger researchers are interested, but sometimes also more senior researchers are interested, and you also see that there's a bit of a difference there in what they expect and how much they know. And as I said in the beginning, the live workshop creates a lot of interaction. That's really nice. Also between the participants, they can, sometimes help each other. And that's just quite nice. You can see that there's already, the people already know a little bit, and they can sometimes also give information from their own experience that helps the other researcher. This is also something that I already mentioned, but researchers mostly think about posting results, and it's also good to really tell them how they can do it, not only posting the results, but just posting different parts of their research career on there. Well, we also see that there are different levels of social media knowledge in the group. So sometimes people are more they know they are more advanced on using social media and they are interested in different things. Our workshop is quite basic, so it's really if you want to get started with it. But what we also do sometimes is give tailored workshop to people that are already a bit more advanced, for example, on how to use the algorithm in your benefit or stuff like that. Or highlight a channel, so not just give an overview of all the channels, but really go into LinkedIn or really go into Instagram. And this is already what I mentioned before. I think it's good to have policy on how to deal with the different channels. We get a lot of questions about that now. This is also always a changing landscape, so it's good to keep up to date with the trends and the developments in the social media landscape. And it's good to think about a policy with your department, and maybe also discuss that with your research support or research department, because what did I want to say? Oh yeah, we also refer to our research code. Sometimes if people ask how to behave on social media, we have a new developed research code that was published last November. And in there's also a part on social media. And yeah, that can give quite good guidelines on how to behave on there. And in terms of dealing with negativity, it's good to make sure that your department can back researchers up if they experience that on social media, because that can really help them to feel a bit more comfortable with starting with social media. I think that was what I wanted to tell you. Are there questions?
Well, thanks a lot, Larissa. And indeed, maybe you can stop sharing your screen so we can see each other. And if there's any questions, please feel free to just drop in and ask a question.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you see me? I don't know. Is my camera working or not? Probably not.
We can hear you.
That's good. That's good.
Ah, there you are. And now you're frozen. Maybe switch off the camera because it seems to take a lot of bandwidth, and we could hear you. Yeah.
Okay. You can see me now even. Okay, good. Great. Thank you for the presentation. It was great. My question is, where did you get the suggestions for the best times for posting on LinkedIn, for example?
Yeah, where did I get that?
Yes. Like,
yeah, so well, different things. We did some research online. We just researched different websites, different how different people do it, how different companies, what they advise, marketing companies or social media companies. And what we also do is in our we use a planning tool, and that also suggests the best time for your audience to post. So that's also something that we use, and we also sometimes advise if you want to invest in a planning tool, because I think not all of them are free. Some of them are, but not all of them are free. But they give really good preferred times for posting for your channel. So they do that based on your activity. So that's how we got to the times and stuff. But the points that we have noted here in the handouts are quite general. So we always also mention that it can really depend on how active you are and how active when your followers are active, for example, and it also differs per channel.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. Sorry, I don't mean to drag the time, but so you were mentioning that it doesn't matter how often you post, but like from what I read or like the research is that you should at least post 3 times per week. Isn't that the?
Yeah, we got that question. It depends, of course, per channel. If you are on X, you should post daily to be a bit successful. On LinkedIn, yeah, we say 3 times a week, but we also advise researchers if they want to start. So if they start from scratch, it's better to post regularly every week. Once, then like if it's not feasible for you to post 3 times a week, then if you do that 3 times a week and then a month nothing and then 3 times a week. So that's why I said that. Of course, there you should be active on there and not only post once a week and then 6 months nothing and then once a week, but to lower the bar a little bit, we say, okay, focus on making a good plan for yourself. If it is only feasible for you to post once a week, fine, but then make sure that you keep up to that frequency so that you can really build a flow. That's what we say, and we see that it works quite a bit. Of course, it's better if you, for Instagram and LinkedIn both, post more often, but with our own channels, we do it like that, and we see that they grow. So I think it also depends a little bit. And the algorithms change a lot.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, Lemke has a question.
Thank you for your presentation, Larissa. I was wondering, do you have maybe an example of a scientist or researcher that has a very successful approach on a certain platform?
Good question. There's not really one I think of right away, because that's also the other part of the workshop, is that we see that people, even though if they follow the workshops, they struggle still quite a bit. So no, I don't really...
or maybe other organizations, or maybe international examples even.
Yeah. Well, nothing that I cannot answer now right away, but I can maybe send you later one. But that's a good question. Maybe good to include in my story also.
Yeah, but I can also imagine that it's still that it's also one of the things on the list of researchers to do.
Yeah, it is.
And you are lowering the making it easier for them to step in, but still, you need to be quite dedicated.
Yeah, for example, we have a research group here, psychedelic medicine for, or what's it called, psychedelic treatments for psychiatry. That's a research group that started with LinkedIn, I think, a year ago or so, and that's doing quite well. And you see there that they have a really specific audience and specific content for them, and that really works. Also with our own channels, but that's a bit different because it is hosted by or like monitored by us. But we started, I think, 2 years ago with UMCG Research LinkedIn account with 100 followers, and now we have 7,000. So we see that it really works to have a bit of a flow, and even on that channel we weren't active. First we weren't active, I think once a week or not even once a week, and now we try to post, I think, 2 times a week at least. But what I really see is that it really depends on what your goal is and who your audience is. Also how the media platform works. There's not a one size fits all strategy, and I hear that a lot of researchers would like to hear that. Like, what do I do? How do I write a great post? Do I get the most views and stuff like that? But it doesn't really work like that, and that's also the good part, because social media is quite personal also, and that's also how you can stand out, or you can give it your own twist, because there are some rules, but there are no super limited rules.
Yeah, you don't have one checklist. Then you will be fine. Yeah.
No, but of course we give them the basics, like have a good profile, be frequently active, use images, try to start your post quite nice. That also always works, but also comment on other people's posts, share posts of your peers if you have no personal content. That also works.
And there's a question from Melina.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. Greetings from the north side of Groningen. So I primarily work with PhD candidates, and I was wondering, I assume this workshop that you talked about is for researchers at any stage, but I was wondering if you had to create this kind of workshop for PhD candidates specifically, how would you change anything? Because at least in my experience, it is often younger researchers that need to be a bit more active in social media to create these networks, whereas for professors, for example, they already have the network. So for them, it may not be as relevant, but what kinds of considerations would there be if I was to organize this for PhD candidates in a specific field?
Yeah, good question. I would try to see where their network is most active, because we also have PhD councils and stuff here, and I know they have their own. They really want to do community building, so they have their own LinkedIn group where they really post content that's only for people in that group, because you can have an open group but also a closed group if you want to share more confidential information, for example. That can really work to build a community, but that's mostly with peers. And I think if they want to build a network also with more senior researchers, I think I would advise LinkedIn, because that's where most professionals are on. But what we also see more and more is that also on Instagram, even though it sounds maybe a bit more for fun and low quality content, it can really work, for example, for behind the scenes in the lab, or just some funny, relatable things that other PhD people also run into. That can also really help with building a community. And with Instagram, you also have other features than LinkedIn. So you can have stories, you can have highlights, you can relate, or you can link also in your bio. You can set up a link tree, for example, and then you can send people to your other websites, to your other channels, maybe to your own website or whatever you want. With the development and the coming like the whole revolution of TikTok, because TikTok is really, really popular under younger people. And we also, as an EBSG, we don't want to be on there, but Instagram has a bit of the same features with, for example, Reels, the short videos. And we also try to invest now a bit more on that. We are still very in the beginning of that, but we are trying to see if that works a bit better also for us as a corporate department. But I think that can also work for younger researchers to have a bit of a more of a fun way of creating your content. And it can also be, you can also really stand out there. But then also the people that you want to connect to also should be on there. And mostly other researchers, like older researchers, are not on Instagram. So for professional, I think LinkedIn, but for also community building and sharing knowledge or even struggles, I think Instagram can work.
Yeah, thanks. Really good tips. Thank you very much. And thank you for your talk as well. It was super good.
Okay, so the researchers that take part in the workshop, do they have a clear idea already about their purpose, their target groups, or are they just like, I want to do something, but I don't even know what I want to communicate with whom and for what reason?
That depends a lot. So it differs. So some really do. They have a project and they need to reach out to patients, for example, and they are trying to find a way to connect to them. And others just want to be more visible, or they want to be visible with their research group and want to share knowledge, to get new collaborations. So it really depends. So that's also what's sometimes a bit difficult, is that some people know already a lot more on how to use social media and they want more the advanced tips and how can I do this better. Other people just sit there and think, okay, what can I do with social media? What do I do there? Why should I be on there? So sometimes you see that then there is a bit of a different level of knowledge in the group. And we are also now trying to see, okay, maybe we can do a follow-up for more advanced people, or maybe we can set up a workshop on how to write for LinkedIn for a certain audience. But yeah, we are still in the developing phase on how we can do that smart. And other people, for example, what I said with the library person, are really interested in how to connect their publications and the statistics there with their social media presence, because there's also a bit of overlap there. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure how that works, but we are now talking with people from the library to see if we can combine that so it can help researchers on both levels.
Yeah, so that would be an extra push for them to take these courses.
Yeah. Yeah, for example, yeah.
No, another thing that you mentioned is the researcher's code, and with some guidelines on how to behave. Do you have an example of how it's formulated there, or? Because I think that's also interesting. Maybe we can send that later if you have.
I can look it up. I don't know it by heart. It's not very big, but of course we also always advise people if they go on social media, you have to realize that you are representing your institute. for example, especially on LinkedIn, and especially if you do it professionally, and that's what the workshop is for, you are connected to an institute. So the rules that, like how you would behave in your working life, also apply them to how you behave online. So that's one of the things that we tell them. But I can look it up what exactly we write down in the research code.
Mhm.
What we exactly write down, because that's interesting.
Yeah, so if I'm allowed to share your slides, I can send it also when the video is published to all the participants.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Sure.
I don't know if there's any more questions. Are you also going into the use of AI technologies for writing these messages, or is that too new to address in this workshop, or too much a step?
Not yet.
too long?
Not yet.
Yeah.
We are at our department working on. Yeah, it's not my expertise, but there are some colleagues of mine. For example, the online marketeer that is really researching that, how we can use that. And also within the UMCG, there is a group that is really, developing policy and also working on how to use AI on all different levels of communication, but also research and all these things. So for now, it's a bit too early, but I think we will add that, because that's also a development that we can't deny. Okay. So I think that's something that we will add in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Martina.
Yes, thank you. I have another question about scheduling posts. Do you also have experience with like lowering the views and engagement when you are scheduling a lot of posts on LinkedIn, for example?
What we see on LinkedIn, and now I speak from the corporate channels, but what we see, if we post 2 posts, for example, on LinkedIn, too close in the time slot on one day, then one post just really is not pushed any further. We see that the really low interaction, really low view. So with that, we are always trying to see how the algorithm works, because I look up online if there are like new developments in the algorithms, because some websites and also LinkedIn itself, I think, publishes it. But it's also a bit of a trial and error to really see how it works. But I do have experience with too often posting. It doesn't really work. Then if we have that here, then we say, okay, we should post this tomorrow, not today, because otherwise it will hide our content. And what also is a big tip for a lot of researchers, because I see a lot of researchers do that, is tag the whole department, tag every person that they work with. And what we know and what we see is that works a little bit if the people that you tag actually like or comment on that post. But if you just tag like 20 people in your department that don't even go to the post, it doesn't really work, and you only have a bulk of names in your post, and it's not really nice for the algorithm, but also not really nice to read, and it just doesn't really work like that.
Okay, so I don't know if in the group anybody else has experience already with these types of trainings and whether they are different. I think the good thing here in Groningen is we do this face-to-face with the researchers, which leads to more interaction. But on the other hand, maybe for Enlight, it would be nice if we could have like an online training, but then there may be big differences between the countries about the types of social media, the etiquette of using social media. So just checking for some responses from our colleagues. I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that. Or just happy and taking in this information, and then maybe.
What I can also mention maybe is that we are trying to see if we can develop our social media into an LMS training. So that's an online learning management system. We are now trying to see if we can maybe record some parts of the workshop and then put that video in an online environment so people can do it step by step and actually feel the strategy same as we do during the workshop, but then they cannot really ask questions, because that's the funny part about this workshop, is that often when we start giving the workshop already on slide 3, and we have like, I think 40 slides, there are so many questions. People are so curious to know so many things. So then we really try to say, okay, we always do the questions also in between, because I think sometimes if you don't answer them right away, they go away. But that's also a bit of a learning, because often what then happens is we stay on slide 3, we speak for 20 minutes about all the questions, and then in the end we run out of time. So what we now try to do is to say, okay, we will get to that, write down your question, and if it's not answered, then we will come back to that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment that I think it's a great idea to do this online social media course, because also I'm a communication officer for Enlight, and it would be great if like the researchers posted something and tagged Enlight. It would create more content for us as well.
Yeah. So let's see what can be developed then.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if there's any more questions, because if not, I want to close this webinar, and thanks, Larissa, a lot for your willingness to do this, and hope
Very welcome.
it was worthwhile for everybody. So I didn't see any people leaving in between, so must have been interesting. So thanks a lot, and well, we're preparing the next webinars, and we'll be in touch with everybody from Enlight. So have a good working day and have a nice weekend. See you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
on the other day it was